Jai Shri Ram. Today we begin Canto 16. The summary is just one line. Lakshman describes the early winter bath in Godavari. While the magnanimous Raghav was staying happily, the desired winter set in at the expiry of autumn. Once that delight of the Raghus, Sri Ram at the break of day went to the beautiful Godavari river for a bath. Following at the heels of Sri Ram, his brave brother, the son of Sumitra, along with Sita and with a vessel for water in his hand, spoke as follows. Now has arrived that season which is dear to you, O polite brother, with which the blessed year appears as though ornamented. The people feel dry with cold, the earth is rich with crops, the waters are unenjoyable, and the fire is agreeable. Having propitiated the manes and gods with offerings for the first fruits of the preceding harvest, and partaken of them themselves, virtuous people have been rid of sin. The people of the countryside have their desires for food grains abundantly fulfilled and have richer supply of cow milk, etc. The kings are moving on their expedition with the desire of conquest. As the sun firmly adheres to the quarter inhabited by the god of death, viz. The south, the northern quarter looks no more charming than a lady without tilak, an auspicious mark on the forehead. Rich in its treasure of snow by nature and abounding in snow at present, the sun being away in the southern hemisphere, the Himalaya mountain more perceptibly justifies its name. At noontide, the days are exceedingly pleasant for a walk and afford delight by the touch of the sun's rays. The sun is agreeable, while shade and water are disagreeable. With an unoppressive sun, beautiful thick fog, bitter cold and winter and desolate woodlands blighted by frost, the day looks calm, devoid of activity and bustle. The nights now preclude repose in open air, are marked with the presence of the constellation known by the name of Pushya, look dusty and with frost and become colder and longer. Having transferred her pleasantness to the sun and with its orb looking reddish due to snow, the moon does not shine any more than a mirror soiled with exaltation. Even on a full moon day, the moonlight does not look bright. Obscured as it is with frost, even as Sita appears tanned with the sun and does not look as attractive as earlier. Cool to the touch by its very nature and now saturated with snow, the westerly wind blows doubly cold in the morning. Shrouded in mist and rich with crops of barley and wheat, the woodlands look attractive at sunrise with noisy herons and cranes, wearing a golden lustre and slightly bent with their weight of corn. Paddy crops look charming with their ears full of corn and resembling date flowers in appearance. With its approaching rays wrapped in frost and fog, the sun, though risen high, looks like the moon. With the glory faintly perceptible in the forenoon and agreeable to the touch at noon, the sunshine, which is partially bright red and partially plain, is spreading its charm on earth. With its grass slightly drenched with dew drops, the land of the woods, penetrated as it is with the morning sunshine, looks charming. Though touching for the sake of gratification the excessively cold water of a pool, the wild elephant, seized as it was with extreme thirst, withdraws its trunk due to its cold touch. Though standing very close to water, the aquatic birds do not actually dive into it, even as the pusillanimous do not plunge into a fight, though standing very close to the scene of fighting. Covered with dewdrops and enveloped in darkness at night and shrouded in the dark occasioned by the fog, the rows of forest trees, bereft of their blossom, appear as though buried in slumber. With their water shrouded in mist and the cranes inhabiting them discernible only by their cries, the streams are perceptible at this time only through their banks with their sands wet with frost. Due to cold occasioned by the fall of frost, as also the mildness of the sun, the water even on mountain tops is generally tasty, with their lotuses worn out due to decay and their filaments and pericarps withered. The lotus beds, blasted as they are by snow, are reduced to mere stalks and no longer look charming. At this time of the year, O tiger among men, the pious-minded Bharat, full of agony caused by separation from you, is practicing austerities in the city of devotion to you, giving up the sovereignty and honor as well as the manifold and diverse enjoyments, and living on a restricted diet. The ascetic reposes on the cold surface of the earth, ready for a dip in the river, and followed by his ministers, he too without doubt walks to the Sharayu river daily at this hour. Tormented by cold, though brought up in the highest luxury and tender as he is, how indeed does he take a dip in the Sharayu during the last watch of the night? With his eyes resembling the petals of lotus, a dark brown of complexion, majestic almost without a belly, a greater knower of dharma, truthful, bashful, master of his senses, polite of expression, amiable, long-armed, the subduer of enemies, he has given up the various pleasures and is devoted to you, his elder brother, with all his being. Paradise has been conquered by your high-souled brother, Bharat, who is following you in your ascetic life, even though you are staying in the forest away from him. The well-known popular saying that men follow the nature of their mother and not their father has been belied by Bharat. How is it that Mother Kaikeyi, whose husband was Dashrath and whose son is the virtuous Bharat, wears such a cruel aspect? Unable to endure such condemnation of his stepmother, while the righteous Lakshman was speaking as above out of affection, Raghav said, "Dear brother, Kaikeyi, our second mother, should never be condemned by you. Speak exclusively about that Bharat, the king of Ikshvakus. To be sure, my mind is intent on my vow of residing in the forest alone and is of firm resolve. Yet, being agonized by Bharat's affection, it gets infatuated once more. I fully recollect his agreeable, sweet, affectionate, nectar-like and soul-ravishing words. When shall I actually be united with the high-souled Bharat, the heroic Shatrughan, together with you, O scion of Raghu?" Discoursing thus on the aforesaid topic and reaching the river Godavari, Sri Ram with his younger brother and Sita bathed in it. Having propitiated with those waters the mains as well as the gods, the sinless trio then glorified the shining sun and the other gods as well. Having finished his bath, Sri Ram shone with Sita and Lakshman, even as Lord Shiva, the destroyer of the universe, with Nandi, his beloved associated, and Parvati, the daughter of the Lord of Mountains, on having concluded his bath in the Ganga. Thus ends Canto 16 in the Aranyakand of the glorious Ramayana of Valmiki, the work of a Rishi and the oldest epic. Jai Shri Ram.